Walk with me. Now.
I have a PhD from Johns Hopkins. I have performed over 2,000 surgeries. I will not be treated this way. I am a savior.
Sir, step back.
You hear me? You can't do this.
Step back, Richard.
The black Mercedes S-Class with MD vanity plates swerved across 2 lanes of traffic on Grant Street, nearly clipping a rusted Toyota Corolla before jerking back into formation. Sergeant Marcus Riley had been running radar near Mercy General Hospital for less than 20 minutes when the vehicle caught his attention, not just for the erratic driving, but for the brazen sense of ownership it projected over the road. The driver accelerated to 73 in a 45 zone, weaved through 3 lanes without signaling, then abruptly decelerated as if realizing the mistake. Riley activated his overhead lights, the red and blue strobes painting the wet asphalt in violent color. Before we continue, don't forget to like and subscribe and let us know where you are watching from. The Mercedes pulled onto the hospital's emergency access road, coming to rest beneath a flickering sodium vapor light that cast sickly yellow pools across the pavement. Riley approached the driver's side, his hand resting naturally near his duty weapon, body cam activated and recording. The window rolled down, releasing a blast of warm air reeking of juniper and expensive cologne. The man behind the wheel wore a $3,000 Loro Piana sweater, his heavy-set frame filling the leather seat like rising dough. "License and registration, please," Riley said, his voice carrying the flat authority of 18 years on patrol. The driver turned bloodshot eyes toward him, pupils dilated despite the bright afternoon sun slanting through the windshield. "Do you have any goddamn idea who I am?" the man slurred, each word carefully enunciated, but still managing to sound wet and loose around the edges. Riley maintained his position, his combat medic training from 2 tours in Afghanistan, screaming warnings about the subject's elevated blood pressure and flushed skin. "I need your documentation, sir," Riley repeated, extending his hand, palm up. The driver shoved the door open with surprising force, nearly catching Riley's knee. "I'm Dr. Richard Vandermeer, Chief of Surgery at this facility," he announced, gesturing wildly toward the hospital's main entrance. Riley stepped back automatically, creating distance as his mind cataloged the immediate threats. The man was 6'2", at least 260 pounds, and his agitation level was spiking into the red zone. "I have a crashing patient on the table right now," Vandermeer continued, his private school accent cracking under the weight of gin and fury. "I need you to use some goddamn discretion and let me get back to work." Riley's eyes narrowed. The nearest hospital entrance was 200 yards away, and no surgeon would exit their vehicle in this condition. "Sir, I'm going to need you to step back to your vehicle," Riley commanded, his tone dropping into the lower registers that brooked no argument. Vandermeer ignored the instruction, moving into Riley's personal space. "Do you know what medical malpractice litigation looks like, officer?" he hissed, the word officer dripping with contempt. Riley's hand shifted to his taser, his weight distributing onto the balls of his feet. "I know what DUI looks like, and I know what obstructing an officer looks like," Riley responded flatly. "Now produce your license, or we're going to have a problem." The Mercedes sat idling, its engine purring with expensive precision. Vandermeer's hands were trembling as he reached into his pocket, not for a wallet, but for his phone. "I'm calling CEO David Morrison right now," he announced, thumbing the screen with clumsy fingers. Riley's body cam captured every movement, the lens steady and unblinking. "Sir, put the phone down and produce your driver's license," Riley said, his patience wearing thin like ice on Spring Pond. Vandermeer laughed, a wet, ugly sound. "You think your little badge means something? I save lives. I matter." Riley had heard this speech before, in various forms, from various entitled mouths. The difference was the medical credentials, the proximity to a hospital, the sheer audacity of the performance. Riley keyed his shoulder mic. "Unit 412, I'm going to need a supervisor and medical unit to my location, possible 10 to 55. 10 to 55? I'm not injured, you idiot! Vandermeer screamed, spittle flying. Riley didn't flinch. The medical unit is for you, sir, when you fail the field sobriety test I'm about to administer. The words landed like punches. Vandermeer's face cycled through purple, red, then a sickly white. Riley pointed to the painted line near the Mercedes front bumper. Walk with me, now. Vandermeer remained rooted to the asphalt, his phone clutched in his sausage fingers like a talisman. I will not be treated this way, he declared, his voice taking on the cadence of someone addressing a courtroom rather than a traffic stop. Riley's combat medic instincts were screaming. Elevated heart rate, flushed skin, the chemical smell seeping from every pore. This wasn't just intoxication. It was a man whose entire constructed reality was cracking under pressure. Last chance, sir, Riley said, producing his citation booklet. License, registration, and proof of insurance, right now. Vandermeer's eyes darted toward the hospital, where a small crowd had begun gathering near the emergency entrance. 2 nurses in scrubs pointed in their direction, their body language shifting from curious to concerned. Riley noted their presence, cataloged them as potential witnesses, and returned his full attention to the suspect. I have performed over 2,000 surgeries, Vandermeer announced, as if this credential would magically dissolve the traffic stop. I have a Ph.D. from Johns Hopkins. Riley cut him off. I have a badge and the authority of the state of Indiana. You're currently violating Indiana Code 9-35. License. Now. The command voice worked. Vandermeer's hand moved toward his wallet, but his fingers were too clumsy, dropping the leather billfold onto the pavement. Riley bent to retrieve it, his eyes never leaving Vandermeer's hands. Inside, he saw a California driver's license, a medical license card, and a Platinum American Express. The medical license had expired in 2019. Riley's pulse ticked up 1 notch. Sir, this medical license is expired, he stated, holding it up for the body cam. Vandermeer lunged forward, trying to snatch it. That's outdated. I have the current one at home. Step back, Riley ordered, his hand moving to his duty belt. Vandermeer complied, but his mouth kept running. This is harassment. This is discrimination against medical professionals. I will have your badge for this. Riley keyed his mic again. 412, expedite that supervisor. I have a 1096, possible 1056. The codes for mental health issue and intoxication. The 2 nurses had begun walking toward them, their pace quickening. Riley recognized one, Dr. Jennifer Chu, the ER chief he'd met during a previous incident. She was shouting something, but the distance and traffic noise swallowed her words. Vandermeer saw them too, and his demeanor changed instantly. The arrogance cracked, revealing panic underneath. Officer, let's be reasonable, Vandermeer said, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. I'm sure we can work something out. A man in your position could use a friend at the hospital, yes? The offer hung in the air like poison gas. Riley's jaw tightened. Are you attempting to bribe a police officer, sir? The question was formal, procedural, and deadly serious. What? No, I'm offering professional courtesy, Vandermeer backpedaled, his hands raised in a placating gesture that looked more like a defensive posture. Riley had seen enough. Turn around and place your hands on the vehicle. Vandermeer's face went slack with shock. You're arresting me? I'm a surgeon. Riley's response was ice. You're a DUI suspect with an expired license who just attempted to obstruct justice. Turn around now. Vandermeer didn't turn. Instead, he took a step toward the hospital, his movements deliberate. Riley moved to block him, creating a physical barrier. Sir, you're not free to leave, he stated, his hand now on his taser. Vandermeer's eyes widened. I have a patient. A human being is dying while you play traffic cop. The words were delivered with theatrical passion, but Riley's attention was on the man's hands, which were trembling violently. "What's the patient's name?" Riley asked suddenly. The question caught Vandermeer mid-rant. "What?" "The patient. The one dying right now. What's their name?" Riley's voice was calm, clinical, the same tone he'd used when triaging wounded soldiers in Kandahar. Vandermeer's mouth opened and closed. I don't have to tell you that. High PA regulations." Riley almost smiled. "HIPAA doesn't apply to police officers investigating a crime, sir, but nice try." The body cam captured everything, the sweat beading on Vandermeer's forehead, the way his eyes kept darting to the nurses now 50 yards away and closing fast. Dr. Chu was shouting clearly now, "That's not Dr. Vandermeer. He's not on staff." The words hit Vandermeer like physical blows. He flinched, his composure shattering. Riley heard it, saw it, and his mind connected the dots. "Hands on the vehicle, sir. Last warning." Vandermeer spun, not toward the car but toward Riley, his hands coming up. Riley's taser cleared its holster in under a second, the red laser dot settling on Vandermeer's center mass. "Don't," Riley warned, his voice dropping to a whisper that carried more threat than any shout. Vandermeer froze. The nurses arrived, breathless. Dr. Chu pointed an accusing finger. "Officer, that man is not a physician at this hospital. We've never seen him before." Riley kept his eyes on Vandermeer. "Thank you, doctor. I was beginning to suspect that." Vandermeer's face crumpled, then hardened into something ugly. "You have no idea what you're doing," he hissed. "I have connections. I have resources." "Turn around," Riley repeated. This time Vandermeer complied, his movements slow and deliberate. Riley holstered his taser and drew his handcuffs, the metal clicking coldly. As he reached for Vandermeer's left wrist, the man tensed. "Don't resist," Riley warned. The cuff snapped shut. Then everything went sideways. Vandermeer spun, using his bulk like a weapon, trying to bull-rush Riley toward the Mercedes. Riley sidestepped, his combat training taking over. He pivoted on his left foot, brought his right knee up into Vandermeer's thigh, and used the man's own momentum to drive him face first into the pavement. The impact was sickening. Vandermeer screamed, more rage than pain. Riley had the second cuff on in 3 seconds, his knee planted firmly between Vandermeer's shoulder blades. "Stop resisting," he commanded, but Vandermeer kept bucking, his face grinding into the asphalt. Riley keyed his mic, breath coming steady despite the adrenaline. 412, I need additional units. Suspect is 1015, 1096, possible 1056. The codes for prisoner, mental health, and intoxication. Officer Darren Mitchell's unit skidded to a halt 30 seconds later, lights painting the scene in frantic red. He jumped out, weapon drawn, assessing the situation in one practiced glance. "Sarge?" "Cuff him for me," Riley grunted, maintaining control of the struggling Vandermeer. Mitchell moved in, securing Vandermeer's legs with a hobble restraint, while Riley kept pressure on his back. Dr. Chu and the other nurse stood back, their phones out, recording. Riley made a mental note to collect their statements and footage. Vandermeer was screaming now, his voice raw. "I'm going to sue you. I'm going to own your house. I'm going to—" Riley leaned close to his ear. "Sir, you're under arrest for DUI, resisting law enforcement, and impersonating a physician. You have the right to remain silent. I strongly suggest you use it." Mitchell got the leg restraint secured and helped Riley lift Vandermeer to his feet. The man's face was scraped raw, blood mixing with tears and snot. The expensive sweater was torn at the shoulder. Riley felt nothing. This was a suspect who'd chosen every escalation. "Search his vehicle," Riley ordered Mitchell. "I want everything documented." As Mitchell moved to the Mercedes, Riley began patting Vandermeer down. In the right front pocket, he found a leather credential case. Inside was a medical license from California, a DEA registration card, and a diploma from Caribbean Medical University. All looked pristine, too pristine. Riley's combat medic training kicked in again. The cardstock was wrong. The seals were slightly off-center. The typography was modern on a document supposedly issued in 2005. "These are fake," Riley said quietly, more to himself than anyone. Vandermeer, hearing him, began to laugh. "They're not fake. I'm real. Everything about me is real." Riley held the credential case up to his body cam. "These are entering evidence as Exhibit A." He turned to Dr. Chu. "Doctor, can you confirm this man has no privileges at your hospital?" Dr. Chu nodded vigorously. "Absolutely not. Our chief of surgery is Dr. Patricia Williams. I've never seen this man before today." Riley felt the case solidifying around him. "Thank you. Officer Mitchell, please escort Dr. Chu inside and take her statement. I want this on paper." Mitchell moved to comply, but Vandermeer started shouting again. "Don't talk to them! They're lying! They're jealous!" Riley guided Vandermeer to the rear of his patrol unit, opening the door. "Watch your head," he said automatically, placing his hand on Vandermeer's head to guide him into the seat. Vandermeer twisted at the last second, trying to plant his feet on the door frame. Riley drove his shoulder into the man's kidney, using precise, controlled force. The suspect folded into the cruiser with a grunt of pain and defeat. Officer Mitchell emerged from the Mercedes holding a leather briefcase and a prescription pad. "Sarge, you need to see this," he called, his voice tight with discovery. Riley secured Vandermeer's seatbelt, ignoring the man's continued threats, and slammed the door. The interior camera would record every word Vandermeer uttered now, every confession, every lie. Mitchell opened the briefcase on the hood of his unit. Inside were surgical instruments, still in their sterile packaging, and a stack of patient files. Riley flipped through them, his combat medic training instantly spotting the red flags. The surgical notes were gibberish, filled with misused terminology and impossible procedures. One file listed a sternotomy for cardiac bypass, a term that didn't exist in medical literature. "These are props," Riley said quietly, his anger building. "This guy's been playing dress-up with people's lives." Mitchell nodded, his face pale. "There's more. Prescription pad is from Vandermeer Cosmetic Institute. The address is a P.O. box. Dr. Chu returned with printed sheet. Our HR director just confirmed. No Richard Vandermeer has ever been credentialed here. No privileges, no residency, nothing." Riley took the paper, his mind already organizing the case files. "Doctor, I need you to write a formal statement. Officer Mitchell will take it." Vandermeer watched from the cruiser, his face pressed against the window. His expression had shifted from rage to something more dangerous. Calculation. Riley met his gaze through the glass and saw the moment the man realized his masquerade was over. The body cam captured it all, the micro-expressions, the flicker of panic, the desperate reorganization of a liar's mind. Riley returned to his cruiser, sliding into the driver's seat with the leather briefcase. Vandermeer immediately started talking, his voice slick with manufactured reason. "Officer, this is all a misunderstanding. I can explain the credentials. Riley cut him off. "Save it for the judge." The computer terminal between the seats blinked to life. Riley began entering data, his fingers moving with practiced speed. He ran the California driver's license first, valid but flagged. Then he entered the medical license number from the forged card. The system churned for 3 seconds before returning a result that made Riley's blood run cold. License revoked. Status: surrendered 2019. Board action: Nevada Medical Examiners. Riley's jaw tightened. He keyed in the NCIC query for the name Richard Vandermeer. The response was immediate and devastating. 2 felony warrants appeared, one from Nevada, one from California. Both for practicing medicine without a license, both with extradition holds. "You're a busy man," Riley said, turning to face his prisoner. Vandermeer had gone pale, his bravado evaporating. "Those are old charges, settled. I paid restitution." Riley shook his head. "Restitution doesn't bring back dead patients?" The words hung in the air like gunsmoke. Vandermeer's face crumpled, then reconstructed itself into a mask of wounded innocence. Those were complications, unforeseen outcomes. Medicine is art, not science. Riley's combat medic experience screamed at the obfuscation. He'd seen real doctors take responsibility. This was pure theater. Riley pulled out his phone and called the non-emergency line to Mercy General's administration. A woman named Margaret Holloway answered, her voice crisp and professional. When Riley explained the situation, she gasped. "We fired someone matching that description 6 months ago. He was calling himself Dr. Richard Vaughn. He bribed our clinic coordinator." The pieces clicked into place. Riley thanked her and requested she email the termination records. He turned back to Vandermeer. "So which is it, Vandermeer or Vaughn? Or do you have other names?" The suspect said nothing, his eyes fixed on the floorboard. Riley's body cam captured the silence, the admission of guilt, written in posture and defeat. Backup units began arriving, securing the scene, and managing the growing crowd of hospital staff. Dr. Chu had been joined by 3 other physicians, all recording on their phones, all shouting confirmations that Vandermeer was an imposter. Riley organized them like a perimeter, assigning Officer Mitchell to collect statements while he processed the vehicle evidence. The Mercedes was registered to Vandermeer Medical Holdings, LLC, a shell corporation with a Cayman Islands address. Riley ran the VIN through the system, discovering the vehicle was purchased with a wire transfer from a Panamanian bank. The level of sophistication suggested organized fraud, not a simple con. This was a lifestyle maintained through systematic deception. Margaret Holloway arrived in person, her administrative ID bouncing against her blazer as she hurried across the parking lot. She was breathless, clutching a manila folder. "Officer, I have his employment file. It's all falsified. We discovered it during a routine audit, but he disappeared before we could terminate him formally." Riley took the folder, flipping through pages of fabricated credentials. The Caribbean Medical School diploma was printed on paper that didn't exist before 2018. The residency certificates bore signatures of doctors who died years earlier. The malpractice insurance was a forgery so crude it should have been spotted immediately. "How did he get past your credentialing board?" Riley asked, Holloway's face flushed with shame. "He bribed our clinic administrator. $5,000 cash. We fired her too, but the damage—" Riley nodded, understanding. Con men preyed on institutional weakness. This one had found a perfect target, a struggling cosmetic clinic desperate for revenue. Inside the cruiser, Vandermeer had begun a low, monotonous muttering. Riley listened through the open window, catching fragments. 20 years! 20 goddamn years! They can't take it away now!" Riley keyed his shoulder mic. 4 to 12, I'm going to need a transport unit. Suspect is ready for booking. The NCIC report, printed from Riley's cruiser, told a story of escalating tragedy. In 2018, Richard Vandermeer IV had performed a spinal fusion in Las Vegas, using hardware he'd purchased from a gray market supplier. The patient, a 42-year-old mother of 3, died of sepsis when the hardware disintegrated inside her spine. The malpractice settlement was sealed, the medical board investigation buried under motions filed by Prescott and Associates. The second case was worse. A 28-year-old man underwent elective rhinoplasty in Reno. Vandermeer had administered his own anesthesia, a cocktail of propofol and fentanyl purchased without prescription. The patient never woke up. The death was ruled accidental until a nurse anonymously reported that Vandermeer had left the patient unattended for 40 minutes while taking a phone call. Riley's combat medic training recognized the patterns immediately. The sternotomy mispronunciation wasn't just a slip, it was the mistake of someone who'd read textbooks but never stood in an operating room. The forged credentials were props in a 20-year role-play that had killed at least 2 people. The weight of it pressed against Riley's chest. He walked back to his cruiser, opening the rear door. Vandermeer looked up, his eyes hollow. "You don't understand," he whispered. "I was supposed to be a doctor. My father, my grandfather, the Vandermeers are physicians." Riley's voice was stone. "You were dismissed from medical school in 2003 for cheating. That's not a physician, that's a fraud." The words hit Vandermeer like physical blows. He recoiled, pressing against the far door. "How did you—" Riley held up the folder from Margaret Holloway. "Your lies are paper-thin. The question is, how many other patients did you kill?" Vandermeer's silence was answer enough. Riley slammed the door, his decision made. This wasn't just DUI anymore. This was homicide. A black Lincoln Navigator with tinted windows screeched into the parking lot, blocking the ambulance bay. A man in a three-piece suit emerged, his shoes so polished they reflected the emergency lights. Charles Prescott III, attorney-at-law with a retainer from the Vandermeer pharmaceutical fortune. He marched toward Riley, his face a mask of cultivated outrage. "Officer, I'm representing Dr. Vandermeer," he announced, producing a business card. "This arrest is unlawful, and I demand his immediate release." Riley took the card without looking at it. "Your client is under arrest for DUI, resisting, and practicing medicine without a license. He's also a fugitive from Nevada and California." Prescott's composure flickered. "Those matters are sealed, and he's not a fugitive if he wasn't properly served." Riley held up his phone, playing the body cam footage of Vandermeer's field sobriety refusal. "He's intoxicated, belligerent, and a danger to the public. The transport unit arrives in 5 minutes. You can follow us to booking." The attorney's face hardened. "Do you know who the Vandermeer family is? We donate $3 million annually to this hospital. We fund the Police Benevolent Association." Riley met his gaze without blinking. "Then your family should be ashamed of what you've been protecting." He turned away, dismissing the attorney with his posture. Prescott tried a different tack. "Officer, let's be reasonable. A donation could be made, a substantial one, for the department." Riley stopped, turning slowly. "Are you attempting to bribe a police officer?" The question hung in the air, heavy with legal weight. Prescott backpedaled. "I'm discussing a charitable contribution." Riley keyed his body cam, making sure it captured every word. "Charitable contributions don't get DUI charges dropped. Your client killed 2 people. He's going to face justice." The attorney's face went pale. He hadn't known about the homicide connection. Riley watched the realization dawn, the understanding that this wasn't a fixable problem. The transport unit arrived, driven by Officer Carla Mendez, a 15-year veteran known for her unflappable demeanor. She took one look at Vandermeer, now weeping silently in the back of Riley's cruiser, and raised an eyebrow. "Tough guy?" Riley handed her the arrest packet, thick with documentation. "Tough, until the truth showed up." Together they transferred Vandermeer to the transport vehicle, his legs hobbled, his hands cuffed behind his back. He didn't resist now. The fight had drained out of him, replaced by a hollow resignation. Riley secured him in the rear seat, double-checking the restraints. "You're looking at 20 years minimum," Riley said quietly. "More if Nevada extradites first." Vandermeer looked up, his face a ruin of expensive skincare and expensive lies. "I was good at it," he whispered. "The surgeries, I mean. Most of them worked. The patients were happy." Riley's jaw tightened. "Most, not all. And the ones who died didn't get to be happy." Back at his cruiser, Riley began the meticulous process of evidence logging. Each forged document was photographed, each surgical instrument bagged. The prescription pad went into an evidence envelope. The patient files from the briefcase were cataloged. 7 names, 7 people who needed to be contacted immediately. Riley's report would be a masterpiece of procedural documentation. Officer Mitchell returned with statements from 6 hospital staff members, all confirming Vandermeer's impersonation. Dr. Chu had provided a detailed analysis of the forged credentials, pointing out errors that would have been obvious to any real physician. Riley added her statement to the growing file, his mind already organizing the case for the prosecutor. At the station, booking took 3 hours. Vandermeer was photographed, fingerprinted, and processed through the system. His real name, Richard Vandermeer Foer, popped flags in 3 states. The NCIC holds were confirmed. Nevada wanted him for manslaughter. California wanted him for fraud. Indiana would hold him on the DUI and impersonation charges, while extradition was sorted. Riley's report was 37 pages, single-spaced, with 87 attachments. It included body cam timestamps, witness statements, forensic analysis of the forged documents, and a detailed timeline of Vandermeer's 20-year deception. The prosecutor called it the most thorough arrest report he'd ever seen. Riley's zero-tolerance policy for professional courtesy corruption had just taken down a predator. The media arrived the next day. The story of the fake surgeon made national headlines. The Vandermeer family issued a statement disowning Richard IV, claiming they'd been victims of his deception as well. Riley didn't believe it, but it wasn't his job to prosecute families. His job was done. 2 weeks later, Riley received a commendation from the chief. Dr. Chu sent a handwritten thank you card. The families of Vandermeer's victims contacted him through the prosecutor's office, expressing gratitude that someone had finally stopped him. Riley filed the commendation and kept the card in his locker, a reminder that real justice wasn't about traffic stops or quotas. It was about protecting people who couldn't protect themselves. The Mercedes was impounded, eventually sold at auction. The Shell Corporation was investigated by the IRS. The clinic administrator who took the bribe was charged. The system worked because one officer refused to bend, refused to accept the masquerade. Sergeant Marcus Riley went back to patrol, his body cam recording, his report book ready, his conscience clear. Justice had been served, one lie at a time.